Hey, it's Drybear. I've got good news and bad news as we have the new update patch notes launched for Season 1 of the First Descendant, but it has some surprises in it that I think a lot of people weren't expecting. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So the reason that Freyna is actually so sad is not because she accidentally offed her boyfriend using her RK poison effect, or that she's being forced to expand her powers through the ultimate program. No, Freyna is actually quite sad because the schedule for Season 1 was launched with these patch notes, so we'll start there and we'll work our way back with some of the details that are coming to this, including some really nice changes and some gameplay reworks as well. So the schedule that's shown here shows that this is the full timeline for Season 1. The first update for Season 1, as shown on their roadmap, it's going to be a segment of 3 on their total update. The first update will be next Thursday. It'll be new Descendant Hailey and Hailey skins. It will also include the new seasonal invasion dungeon, as well as the seasonal buff mechanic, invasional reinforcement, the special affix they're doing for their characters, and it'll also include the new battle pass. So the battle pass will start next Thursday as well. So keep in mind that you need to be finishing your seasonal challenges to get your supply coins and finish that off, and also spend all of your pink coins because those will be disappearing next Thursday as well. It will also come with the new ultimate weapon Excava, which is an assault rifle. This one builds up charge and releases charge in some kind of burst. We don't know exactly yet. Even by the description, we're not really sure exactly what energy grenades means. Is this some kind of like ADS mechanic? Is it an alt fire mechanic? Does it shoot normally with its shots? We'll have to find out next week, but that is the timeline. However, that is all that is coming next Thursday, and I think this is just a lesson in optics and communication with community, because I think a lot of people were expecting the entirety of Season 1 to include all the content that has been shown, talked about, and teased. The second update, the mid-season update for the First Descendant Season 1, will be coming a month later on September 26th. So a full 4 weeks after we have the update for Season 1, that is when we'll be getting the new Intercept Void Colossus Death Stalker, the new Ultimate Scout Rifle Frost Watcher, and new Ultimate Skins, so skins for all the ultimates, and then an ultimate Descendant exclusive spawn effects, which means you probably have to be have an ultimate Descendant equipped in order to use these spawn effects. So just new cosmetics coming into the store with a new scout rifle and a new boss. Then, a month after that, so just before Halloween, October 30th, we will then be getting the final update for Season 1, which will finally include Ultimate Freyna, her Ultimate Freyna exclusive story, which is this really cool cutscene that we got of her transforming into her ultimate version. So that will be coming just before Halloween, and then we'll also get Ultimate Freyna modification modules, so the 2 mods there. It's also important to note that in the end of Season 1 is where we're going to get Hailey modification modules, so kind of like Luna, you can probably expect that Hailey will be launching with 2 mods just to begin, and then she'll get 2 more at the end of the Season 1. New ultimate modules is kind of interesting. It could be that all the ultimates in the game are getting 1 more module, which is really cool. It means more build options for Ultimate Bunny, Ajax, Glay, possibly even Freyna, all of those characters, Viessa, might get some really cool options for building their character. Then we're also going to see the highest difficulty infiltration operations. Now, this one's an interesting one to talk about because this is the speedrun mode that they've been talking about. If you've kind of been living under a rock over the last week or two, you didn't hear about the speedrun mode that they had for these, but they wanted to make a higher difficulty option for the dungeons, the infiltration operations in the game that is going to be primarily timed. So it's kind of like a time-gated like rush challenge, and the faster or better that you complete these dungeons, the better your rewards will be. However, it is important to note that they're dropping this at the end of Season 1, which tells me that they don't plan for this to be rotated out at the end of the season. I think either this is going to be a very short farm experiment, like 3 to 4 week experiment, or this is meant to be part of the core game, which could be really cool depending on how it's received. And the other thing to think about here as well is that along with this, a mysterious merchant ETA 0 visits Albion. A couple things to talk about this as well. Every time he visits, he shows up with a variety of products that can be purchased with exclusive currency. So it's kind of like the vendor we know about in Warframe. With each visit, he brings different products. So this might be like the Argos in Monster Hunter, where it's just he only has a small list of things to choose from, and when you look at his vendor options, you'll have different things to buy based on the currency you collect. Since he visits Albion with blueprints for Descendants and ultimate weapons, and occasionally hard to find consumables. Don't miss out. So we didn't really know what to think about the vendor going into this season 1 update. It could have just been, hey, you're gonna buy like blue weapon skins or something. They did mention that they wanted this vendor to be able to purchase from you your extra drops. So if you have like 35 Galay stabilizers sitting around, you could sell them to ETA 0 for this new exclusive currency that only this robot deals with. However, it's kind of a surprise that they included blueprints for Descendants and ultimate weapons. Now, I don't know if this extends all the way to spiral catalyst, enhanced cells, all like nanotubes, things like that, but it could be very possible that you could sell your duplicate things that you don't need and potentially buy the materials or the blueprints that you actually do. Like, could you buy Ultimate Valby Code? Could you buy Ultimate Ajax Enhanced Cell Blueprint? Could you buy the Secret Garden Nanotube that you've been trying to farm over and over and over based on using the excess that you had before? That would be awesome and would be a really cool change that's more gameplay oriented. That would be really cool, I think. The only fortunate part is that this vendor is coming at the end of October, at the very end of Season 1. So it's a few months away from that, but it's very possible, if that is the case, this opens the door for some really clean gameplay loops where you just farm and farm and farm, and then when you have excess, you turn that excess into things you actually need for the game, not just cosmetics or gold, but actually targeting items that you need by getting rid of items that you don't, which I think will make the grind, if you're someone who has complaints about the grind in the First Descendant right now, it's gonna be awesome that if this is exactly as I think it is based on the description, that's gonna be a really nice change. So that covers the mixed review news for the game, is that yes, all of this stuff is coming, and yes, it's going to be awesome, but they decided they're going to stagger it. And I think the biggest lesson for them here is just a lesson in optics and setting expectations for players. It's possible that they planned to do this correctly, and that realistically, if there was going to be a drip feed staggered content timeline, that should have been announced before the trailer was released, so the expectation was set that everything you see in the trailer is going to come at different times. But unfortunately, not only was the teaser released last week, but also the full trailer was released last week, and in that trailer was everything just descripted except for possibly the vendor. So we saw Old Freyna, everyone got excited for Old Freyna, and now they're having to wait 2 more months to get Old Freyna at the end of October, which I think is kind of a shock for a lot of people. And again, that's more around just setting expectations and preparing for the future. Now let's get into the good stuff, the exciting stuff. So let's just go through what's in the patch. There's also some balance changes, even for you Jaber mains out there, that are really good. And I think either way, I think if you're a First Descendant fan, it's still a good time to be gaming. We're on a good timeline. It's just the timeline is going to be a little bit longer than you thought. So the new seasonal mechanic is this right here. We actually did see it in the original trailer where they were shooting to clear out this gunk, like this black mold from these pillars, and this is going to be part of the invasion dungeons that will be part of the season itself. So this is Corel's new weapon. They're trying to shut down the Descendants because the Descendants are so cool and their butts are so big and round that they can't seem to stop us, and so they're trying to invent new technology to slow down our advance so that they can accomplish their own goals. So this is their seasonal mechanic, and we're going to have to do all kinds of extra things. And this also goes in line with the developer talking about last week, where they didn't want to keep doing stand in the circle mechanics. Everyone was complaining about how you just have to stand in a circle, then you go stand in another circle, and then you go stand in another circle. It just gets pretty boring, and so they wanted to do something new, and they're already making good on that promise by giving us this new mechanic. So I'm guessing these are going to be scattered throughout the dungeon. The evasion event will occur daily in 2 of the hard infiltration operation dungeons. Now, we don't know how long these are going to last. I hope they last for, like, if each one lasts 12 hours, that's fine. In general, especially when you have a multinational, international game, if you do time-limited events, they really need to be going all the time. Otherwise, it really screws people over. Like, if this is just like for an hour twice a day, there's going to be people that don't fit that timeline, and if they're at work, they won't be able to actually get that done. So we'll see how that actually goes, but it looks like 2 dungeons randomly on the map somewhere will be updated to include the new hard mode, the new invasion mode mechanic, which is pretty cool. And then they say that you're able to clear this twice per day per each dungeon for special rewards. So as soon as the dungeon comes up, you can clear that invasion dungeon twice, wait for the next one to pop up, do it again twice, and you get rewards from that. They don't tell us exactly what the rewards are going to be, but hopefully they're really cool. cool. They will put your skills to the test. They will hold back the Descendants. They put in a defense system with different mechanics for each legion. And unfortunately for the people out there, yes, this includes puzzles. You're going to have to use your brain a little bit and some strategies from normal dungeons where your objective is to fend off the invasion as quickly as possible. It could be that this is just existing dungeons, although this looks kind of new to me, this area here. So it could just be a new area, but it also could just be a modification of the existing dungeon as well. Moving on to Lil Miss Hailey Scott. This one is pretty exciting because if you look through her abilities, she is a firearm attack based Descendant, which is very cool for a sniper kind of Descendant, but a lot of what she does is related to firearm attack and firearm penetration, which means she's going to have a really cool builds with some of those high bursty weapons like Afterglow Sword or Piercing Light that really scale well with those kind of things, and it's going to be pretty cool to play around with. So her first ability is Cryo Round. She activates this ability and it just shoots a whole bunch of enemies around. However, the cool part about this is that it deals additional damage along with Hailey's firearm damage. So I think things like shot focus are probably going to be pretty interesting, and it does open the pathway to some new builds potentially for Hailey Scott. The next one is Storm Flare. This is the one they teased in the trailer for us. This fires a freezing beam that unleashes a vortex around you and knocks back enemies. So it has a CC effect. It looks like it has a pretty wide range at base. I'm guessing this is without range modification or size extend, like skill extension, whatever. And it inflicts cryo on enemies, which I'm guessing is frostbite, and the enemies take damage. You have this big wind up, big blast. You can do some cool skill damage with this as well, and this looks like this one's going to be pure skill damage. Cold Fury lowers Hailey's movement speed. This one is going to be kind of interesting. Usually a detriment to a character like this doesn't feel good, but it does give her firearm and skill critical hit rate. I'm guessing this is firearm critical hit rate. I feel like when they do this, they should always list the full stat by itself rather than trying to like firearm and skill hyphen critical hit rate. You know, like, does this mean both crit for both of them? Probably, but I feel like they should just write it out. Could just be a translation thing. And firearm penetration all increase significantly. So you slow yourself down, which hopefully is just, you know, not additive with other snares and slows in the game, but it increases her firearm and skill critical hit rate and firearm penetration. So you can combine this with really big shots. It's kind of like the stealth for Sharon, which is really awesome. And you can also do additional damage with her Q, her first ability, with extra firearm damage as well, which is going to be really, really fun. I think that's cool. I think it's different than most of the characters we have. And her last ability is her unique weapon. It's the weapon we saw in the trailer. It's not going to be a new ultimate weapon. It is Hailey exclusive. It is a special weapon for her and her only. So she replaces her weapon with a unique weapon, an anti-material sniper cannon, which is why it looked so dang big in all of the art that we saw. Penetration of the anti-material sniper cannon and firearm attack greatly increase and deal additional chill skill damage, recovers MP upon successfully attacking weak points, and decreases the cooldown the more bullets you have remaining when the skill ends. So if you don't use all the shots, the cooldown is reduced. It also will give you MP back if you can be precise with your shots, which is really cool, which means you can use her other abilities, spend all of your MP, and then use her ultimate as a way to get MP back. So maybe she doesn't need things like MP Collector. We'll have to see when that build actually goes live. They also explain what the heck these things are. We saw the teaser with Hunt, Attribute, Recovery, Survival, and Season, which meant nothing to us. Those are just words. But now they explain what this is. This is going to be the reinforcement aspect for the season, the way to make your character builds different, and the kind of seasonal mechanic that they're trying to bring in. And it does sound like it's going to be more of a borrowed power thing that's only available for Season 1, and then it goes away after Season 1. But Hunt will improve your Descendants' basic stats. Attribute increases your Descendants' attribute resistance. Recovery improves your Descendants' recovery. Survival increases a defense buff that activates under certain conditions. And Season receives an effect that is useful for invasion dungeons. So this is probably related to completing the puzzles or the trials you have in the invasion dungeon. And then we just have some very simple basic buffs that come along with it. Doesn't sound like it's going to be as complicated as maybe an ARPG would, but it's still going to be cool and interesting, hopefully, that spices up the experience of doing these dungeons and doing these invasions as well. Inversion Reinforcement is a progression system that only lasts for the season. So this is a rotational mechanic. You can learn the reinforcement effect using Ironheart Particle, which can be earned by clearing invasion dungeons or being active in the hard difficulty fields. 3 of the effects have been unlocked. When you unlock all 4 in a line, you automatically acquire that line's collection effect. So it's probably going to be like ramping up tiers, because like an actual grid of buffs that you can unlock. So it is going to be a little bit more complicated than we once thought. Our passive effects are always applied during the season. So you actually, it is really just a permanent unlock for the whole thing. It's not for like a single mission. You're just doing invasion dungeons, seasonal activities, and hard difficulty field activities in order to unlock seasonal buffs. And this makes you stronger for the season. And that's just the way it is. You can utilize 3 selected effects and 5 collection effects from each line in battle once they're unlocked. So you can choose which ones make the most sense, which I guess could be really cool, because maybe you can choose to have really high, cold resistance when you're going up against gluttony, or maybe you really need increased HP recovery when you're going up against a dungeon that has a lot of chip damage or something. Like, it could just be, it is easier for you to complete certain activities that you may struggle with based on the powers that you activate and apply to your character. Next, we know Freyna's Awakening is coming to Ultimate, and also her story is coming along as well. There's also going to be exclusive modification modules for her. I think in general, this is just going to be dope. The Ultimate Freyna looks really cool, and we're probably going to get some really cool visuals for her on top of everything, which is going to be really nice. We know with the Battle Pass is coming the new Assault Rifle Excava and a brand new Battle Pass to complete, so make sure you finish your current Battle Pass to get that one done. And then later in the season, like at mid-season, we're going to get the Scout Rifle, which reduces enemy chill resistance and increases your chill damage, which is going to be nice for Viessa and for Hailey as well. We also know that the new Death Stalker battle is coming. This one looks like it's going to be pretty challenging and has some very intense mechanics based on the teasers that we've seen. And at the end of the season, we're going to be getting the speed run, Greater Rift map challenge dungeon modes, Mythic Plus, whatever you want to call it, modes for the dungeon operations. And this will probably, hopefully, test our team comps more than just characters. I'm very much hoping this isn't just 4 bunnies running along, high-fiving each other and say, "Get out of the way," over and over. And it's very possible that if these are hard enough, we will need Lunas and Eugens and Ajaxes and Enzos and, synergies between characters lining each other up and helping each other, which I think is going to be really cool. Then the Merchant, we already talked about. Mysterious Merchant is coming at the end, or, at the very end of the season in October, which is going to be really big there, and that's going to be super nice. And then here are the gameplay changes that are pretty big for the game as well. Void Fragment and Fusion Reactor loop improvements. The Void Shard, Void Fragment, Fusion Reactor loop changes are actually really sweet. The first one, which I think is a really clean, much needed change, is that when you use the Void Shards while doing a Fusion Reactor is not when you spawn the boss, but rather when you open the reconstructed device and use it to open an amorphous material. So you can spawn the boss as much as you want if that boss drops some kind of material you want, or something you want to farm, or you just want to, be involved with it, but you don't want to spend the shards, like you want to help your friend farm it. You can. It'll now, in Season 1, only update to consume your Void Shards when you open the reconstructed device, the globe on the ground. That's big. The next one is pretty surprising. I wasn't really expecting this, but what they're doing is they're changing it so that the Void Fusion Reactor only requires 1 type of Void Shard, and the amount required is equal to the amount that the Void Fragment in that region drops. So if you notice that in the areas that have Void Fusion Reactors, there's a Void Fusion or Void Fragment nearby, they're going to change it so that, it drops however much. I don't know if they're going to raise it up, because some of them require 35 or whatever. Maybe it'll just, maybe fragments drop 35 inorganic Void Shards, and then the reactor that's connected to it requires only 35 inorganic fusion Void Shards. And so it's just going to be very much a 1-to-1. You do the Void Fragment, you do the Fusion Reactor. You do the Void Fragment, you do the Fusion Reactor, back and forth, and you don't have to go farm other Void Fragments for other shards. You can just do it within the one, which is very, very cool. I think that all of that just makes it very clean and very easy. Next, when it comes to hard infiltration operations, there's some really interesting stuff in here. It's hard to know exactly what they're saying with the text listed, but let's walk through it. Firstly, the random option for dungeons is gone. This one is, it was just super silly. I had some clips yesterday on stream where I was just, literally I had it checked and I had to roll like hundreds of thousands of gold of times in order to get, 230, 240, or 250 on the dungeon. It just kept rolling bad stuff or rolling very low values, and it was just wasting gold and wasting time. So that's going to be gone. There will now be 3 options for difficulty for the hard infiltration operations. 0%, which is the base mode. This is if you don't have any affixes on the dungeon at all. 125%, which is going to be a little bit harder, and 250%. So I thought they would do like you know, 175, 200, 225, 250. No, there's 3. 0, 125, and fully maxed out 250. And it also means that you can then queue together, right? Because, you know, it couldn't queue before if people had different affixes applied. Now you can just queue for 250 and hopefully people are all in line with doing the 250 to get that fully maxed out. The next thing is kind of interesting. They're also going to prevent the number of matchmaking pools growing too much by taking out global effects that were applied based on the selected rewards overall. Now I'm wondering, at least in my head when I read this, it tells me that they're going to take away like boss HP increases and like things that apply to the mobs in the dungeon, and instead only apply things to your character so that you can queue with people that have different affixes, right? So if you queued for 250% and you had like would normally have like commander HP plus 25%, maybe that's going to be your damage down 25%, and then you get to queue with other people because what affects you doesn't affect them, and that way they don't have to change the mobs, right? Because there would be a conflict if someone had commander HP 25% and someone else had commander HP 12% and someone else had commander HP normal, right? Those 3 people couldn't play together because it's affecting the dungeon game world. But in this case, if they make it only affect your character, that means that you can queue with whoever you want and everyone has different debuffs applied. And that's how I read this. It means that, you know, the 0% can queue with the 250 and the 125 can queue with the 0, and then you can just have matchmaking across the board. That's kind of how I read that. Next, let's talk about the socket type saving feature, and this is even better than I thought it was going to be. So let's talk about this. This is actually crazy good. When they described the idea of being able to change your sockets based on the setting option that you have, like your loadout for your character, I first imagined this as you could then catalyze a slot only for a specific setting. You have 3 different loadouts for your character and for your weapon. It's even better than that. So rather than just doing it by setting, they say that as soon as you catalyze a socket type, you can always change to that socket type on that socket forever. So if you were to catalyze a socket to be Almundine's socket, and then catalyze a socket, that socket again to be Malachite, you could freely choose between those 2 because you had already catalyzed it once, which is massive. That is absolutely massive. That means that you can, if you want to use 4 catalysts to use 1 for every elemental mod, you can do that, and you can set up 3 settings, like 3 loadouts for your weapons that has 1 for 3 different elements, and you only have to catalyze once per socket. So if you wanted to do more, that way you don't have to constantly recatalyze, relevel. You do it once and you have that available for that socket forever, and it's going to be applied to loadout setting 1 and can also be used for 2 and 3. This is infinitely better than I thought it was going to be. This is going to be very, very nice and long-term awesome, because then you can just keep, if you wanted to, you're just adding more options for yourself as you go through different settings. Now let's get into the balance adjustments, because there are some cool things in here. No, there's no shotgun buffs. No, there's no handgun buffs that we know of, but there are some kind of very targeted changes that hopefully will make the game better overall. Jayber's turret. So Drybear finally getting some love. Has been improved to apply stats such as skill, power modifier, and additional attack, and will be able to be enhanced by Descendant modules. So this was, they're not, they didn't say fixed, they said improved. I wonder if they have originally intended Jayber's turret to not be scalable for some reason, like he's just the only one that suffers in his own little dark corner of the room, but it has been improved to apply stats such as skill, power, and additional attack, and it can be now enhanced by Descendant modules. The turret sync skill has been adjusted to apply to the turret Drybear has summoned, and if turret engineering modification module is equipped, the summoned turret has been improved to create an area as well. This gives Drybear a lot more options for build creation, and it also makes turret engineering way more usable than it was before. Blair's Pitmaster skill has been improved to have a more enhanced effect based on the number of flame zones. The duration of the Blaze Up skill has been increased, and the MP cost has been reduced. So this means that the downside of having to run up into melee range for Blair has an upside, and if you start planting more and more of these zones, you get an added benefit, which I think is a cool way to address the challenge that is Blair. When using Extinguish, the flame zone will no longer be retrieved. Instead, Taste of Progression effect will stack based on the number of flame zones, and it looks like you will still keep the flame zone as well. The damage of Burn Taste skill has been increased, and a skill button import feature has been added to cancel the flamethrower. you can cancel Blair's flamethrower. How amazing is that? That is so awesome. Additionally, the smack stacks of incendiary bomb modification model has been increased. We like that, and the performance of deadly cuisine has been enhanced when the classic chef modification module is equipped. Next, Ajax's orbital barrier and hypercube skills are now affected by attribute resistance. Very nice. There's times where you put down your big, I don't know why it's called hypercube, because it's a sphere. I want to like grab someone at Nexon and show them a picture of a sphere and show them a picture of a cube. But hypercube, the sphere, now will be affected by attribute resistance, which is nice because that means that when you place these down, sometimes in like poison puddles or electric puddles, they end up disappearing faster than you would expect. So that's going to be a nice change there. Body enhancement modification module increases HP, defense, and shield when using these void skills, or the skills that use void energy. It will always recover to 100%, allowing the use of enhanced skills more often. So that special resource that Ajax has is going to be a lot more usable. Additionally, Void Charge, the mod, will allow the Void Walk skill to be stacked, and the Void Walk and Expulsion skills have been modified to increase damage based on defense. So we might see some really cool jumping jacks or double charge jacks builds doing a lot more damage. It also means you can run a little bit more defense and scale off of that defense as well. We don't know how much yet, but it's very possible that jumping jacks is going to come into the meta in really big ways, probably for single target burst damage. Huge news, you can now, in Season 1, dismantle items in combat. This one is typically a griefing case because there are times, the reason this is in here in games, especially multiplayer games, by the way, if you're wondering why are they preventing us from dismantling in combat, it's because that we live in a society where not everyone is honorable. And so by disallowing the dismantling in combat, it means that it forces people to stay focused when they're in combat, right? So you don't have a teammate that's in a void battle in a Colossus that stands in the middle of Gluttony's arena when you need to be shooting bubbles and opens their inventory and starts dismantling items, right? By disallowing that, it prevents the grief case where players will abuse that and not be contributing to the group overall. However, the downside with that prevention of the grief case is that it hurts good people that are just stuck in combat for some reason and they can't dismantle anything, which is really annoying. So hopefully, if we all come together as an honorable and respectful community, we don't have situations where there's a character in our group that is standing still in a danger zone, dismantling items, ignoring everyone around them, while we get this nice feature of being able to dismantle in combat if you need to. So that's really cool. Feature Descendant Resonant option has been added to the external components junk filter and reactor. Again, text only. Hopefully this means that we actually do get a filter. So you can say, like, don't give me any reactors that have, I don't know, like skill duration because it's not something I want right now or whatever. Or maybe I can do external components. Don't give me anything that does shield regeneration out of combat. So maybe we can specify that. That'd be really awesome. This allows you to conveniently designate items that don't have needed random options as junk, which is really cool. So it says you can specify items that don't have the needed random options as junk. It sounds like you can say these items will always be junk, and when they come into my inventory, they won't auto dismantle, but they may automatically be set as junk, which means you can just open your inventory, delete all junk, and then close your inventory because it's automatically flagging those things as junk, which is pretty cool. Next is another confusing one, which is the shapes displayed to show your preferred item attachments can now be designated using a variety of shapes, enabling you to manage them with different shapes. So the way this is right now in game is you can see the icons for what color stats it has, what's on the item, what's available, what element it is. It sounds like they're going to make that a subset of choosable icons that appear or don't based on this description. This translation might be a little weird, but the idea I'm guessing here is that you can mark certain items with certain icons and say like these are here. What I hope this turns into is that like they give us like purpose related icons, like a gold coin that I can mark all of my gold farming external components or reactors with, or maybe like a Kuiper icon or an XP icon or a weapon icon or something like that. And I can go and just visually mark items in my inventory to keep it organized so I can see where my specific things are that isn't just a heart on it, like it actually has some things there. It also could be that they're just going to use the existing icons like for gold stat, purple stat, blue stat, whatever, and you just get to choose what goes on or off. But either way, it sounds like we're getting more customizable options for the icons that appear on your items. A favorite feature has been added to the research menu, and the acquisition information of the applied item will now be shown on the map. I have read this about 5 times now, and the way this sounds to me is it's going to be more like a survival game. If you've ever played a survival game, you can pin a recipe to either your HUD or your map saying, you know, I want to craft a stone hammer, or I want to craft a cloth sail. And it'll tell you on your HUD what all the items are needed to craft that thing, and it tells you where to get them when you open your map. I'm guessing that's what this is you can go up to Anna East, she can scowl at you, and for some reason the internet likes that, and then you can go to an item in the research menu and pin it and say, I want to get this thing, and the acquisition information for that thing will now be shown on your map. So when you open your map, possibly even in the global map, it says, hey, you need to go do the sepulcher dungeon for this, go fight this boss battle, go do this. These are the things you need to do for your pinned recipe. I'm hoping that's what it is, but again, it could be interpreted differently depending on the translation. The last thing is there are some, like, you know, some nice improvements coming along with this as well. A feature to disable voice playback during hard missions. So no longer is there going to be an ambush or did you let it happen. I have voices turned off right now because of that, but it might be nice to have an option to keep voices on, but disable the mission repeating voices in themselves, so you can have a mixture of that. And lastly, the additional visual information added to the encrypted vault. There has been some conversation around vaults not being friendly to those that are hearing impaired, right? So if you're, if you have some kind of hearing impairment, no matter how severe it is, it might be hard to find vaults without a map because either the sounds sound the same to you or you can't even hear them. So the fact that it's hearing only is kind of rough. It's possible they're adding visual information to the vault, which maybe we get a marker that shows where the vault is if you're close enough. That could be pretty cool. And there you go. There are the update notes for Season 1 of the First Descendant. It's going to be staggered content, which means you have more time to prepare for Ultimate Freyna. You have more time to prepare for the hard mode dungeons, but next week we are getting Hailey and probably 2, maybe 3 modules, but probably 2 for her to make some builds. She has some cool opportunities for her. We're also going to get the new invasion mechanic, the new invasion dungeon mechanic, and we're also getting the new battle pass, which comes with a new assault rifle. So that's starting next week, and then we can expect basically every month, at the end of the month, a new series of content coming along. At the end of September, we're going to get the new Colossus fight. Then we're going to go into the next part of the season, and we're going to start unlocking Ultimate Freyna and some new gameplay options as well, which means that every month you can look forward to something new coming into the game going forward. But of course, let me know what you think about this down below. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.